Maha Azzam is the head of the Egyptian Revolutionary Council. She joins us from London. So Maha, given everything that's happened over the last decades, and we saw a pretty good rundown there, tell us, in your view, where we are right now in Egypt in terms of reform and governance that represents the people.
8 years on, the Egyptian people feel the full weight of a military dictatorship. That's where we are now. A military dictatorship that represents a minority, that does not allow for any freedom of speech or freedom of assembly, where all those who demanded freedom and rights in the 2011 revolution and through the democratic process of 2012 that brought President Morsi, the people's choice, to power. We see the people who engaged in this in prison, being tortured. Its leaders face execution. We have 60,000 political prisoners. We have an economy that is dominated by the military. We have the domination of the military, of the media, of the legal system, of all Egypt's institutions. And most recently, the other day, we hear that General Sisi is saying that officers should be appointed to every village in Egypt. That is a military occupation. It is not a regime that represents its people.
I saw that, yeah, and with an officer in every village, fears of militarization of the countryside. So what can the opposition do at this point?
The opposition inside Egypt is essentially it has very little freedom to maneuver, or none at all. The opposition outside has a great responsibility. It is a responsibility to tell democratic governments that they should stop supporting this dictatorship, because by doing so, they threaten the lives of Egyptians, ordinary Egyptians, because every Egyptian today is threatened. It is threatened by a military dictatorship, a junta, similar to those that existed in Eastern Europe and Latin America, a military regime that threatens its own people because it fears any kind of uprising. Sisi himself has said he will not tolerate January 25th again. General Sisi will not tolerate anyone who speaks out or demands their rights. No regime does this to its people unless it feels threatened that there is a strong wave that demands rights and freedoms. And Sisi is intent on ensuring that he breaks any kind of resistance to his regime. This is why the voices outside are an echo to all those inside that cannot speak out. And therefore, our role outside is to ensure, with others who believe in the freedom and rights of all peoples, not only those who live in the West or those who live in democracies, that we should work together to put pressure on democratic governments, the Biden administration, the EU, the country where I live, the UK, that the support and investments that go to the military in Egypt are ultimately against the 100 million who, the majority of whom, 60% of whom, live in poverty. This is a corrupt regime. It is a military that controls the economy for the interests of a few over the many, and that needs to change. We have a legal system that has passed execution verdicts in the thousands. That is a frightening thing. Today, 12 men who were at the helm of the struggle for Egypt's freedom, who were part of a peaceful sit-in Rabaa, face the verdict of execution. And every day we wake up thinking that perhaps the verdicts will be carried out. Now, it is a frightening prospect to every Egyptian to feel there is a threat to their life. Not only torture in prison, not only disappearances, but a threat to life.
I remember after the decades of Mubarak, after the Arab Spring, the hopefulness that was there in Egypt. So it's tough to stomach where things are today. But Maha, thanks so much for joining us.